We have Neil and Sharon Josephson here. They're the National Directors of FamilyLife Canada. It's an organization that helps families grow together and impact their corner of the world. I love that. And Neil and Sharol have been married for 44 years.
Yes.
So they know something. And they're here today with tips and tools for greater intimacy in our relationships. Welcome to 700 Club Canada, guys.
Thanks, and happy Valentine's Day to you.
Yes.
Yeah, you too. You know, we had you on a while ago, really. And it's so great that you're in the studio with us. Thank you for doing this.
It's nice to see you face to face.
Right?
Yes, thanks for having us.
44 years of marriage.
Yes.
You've been doing
Do you
this.
look tired?
Do you look tired? No, actually, you look very much alive. And, you know, that's what I love about our theme this week. We're talking about thriving, not striving, right?
Or just surviving. Right?
Or
Like,
just surviving.
Yeah.
So marriage can be more than maybe what some of us have experienced or desired, but there's some difficult aspects of marriage. We're going to get really honest, right?
Sure.
We are.
Okay, so I'm going to throw the first topic to you. You ready for this
All right,
one?
bring it.
We're ready.
It's Valentine's Day. We're going to talk about physical and emotional intimacy.
Okay.
So,
You're
sex.
going right for it.
I'm going right for it.
Okay.
Why is this actually one of the top 5 conflicts in marriage is physical intimacy or our sex life? Why is that?
Yeah. Well, you know, at the heart of any conflict is passion. Like people care about it. Like if you don't care about it, you won't fight about it.
Right.
So that's the first thing I'd say is, you know, this is a deep desire that people have. And so the potential for conflict exists. And then I think the other piece that we'd want to explain is we're very vulnerable, right? I mean, we're not just, you know, physically naked. You're emotionally naked when you're really sharing yourself with another human being. So that brings out your insecurities. It brings out fears or anxieties. And then particularly if you've got a history where there's experiences or traumas or anxieties, all of this is going to come out in those moments. And so that lays the table for a conflict.
I think we come into marriage too with really different expectations of what our sex life is going to look like. And so that's just room for conflict right there. But then we also have sort of personal differences. We're differently wired. Gender-wise, we're often differently wired. Not always. But just human beings, we're wired differently. And then we bring those differences and it just creates one of the biggest things we hear with couples is the difference in kind of sex drive or libido. That conversation goes on, I guarantee you, in virtually every household in Canada.
That's actually really helpful because I think it's something we don't often talk about because we think we're the only ones. And that could be any area of our life, right?
Yeah, now I want to say this. We've heard that there are couples that have perfectly matched libidos, but we kind of think they're unicorns.
Yeah.
They might exist, but I've never seen one.
Yeah.
So, you know, it just doesn't happen. And then even if you are kind of in sync, then life changes or our bodies change or something, and then you get out of sync. So navigating this libido gap is a challenge and another source of conflict.
Do you think that media affects it?
Oh, for sure.
Our perception, like you said,
for
Sharol,
sure.
but we come with different expectations.
For sure.
What's the impact of media on that?
Well, my perception is I think we've raised the bar so high in our expectations for what our sexual relationship is going to be like. And to be honest, when a couple comes together, they don't know each other. They don't know how each other's body works. They don't know how to even communicate sometimes about their sex life. It takes a while, but if you have expectations that as soon as you hit the sheets, it's going to be perfect. You can be pretty disappointed. And then sometimes, and we've heard this too, that early disappointment in the relationship kind of sows some seeds that really creates kind of an awkward relationship down the road.
Right, right.
People seem to almost have a hard time recovering from some of that earlier misunderstanding.
Especially if you aren't able to talk about it.
That's the huge
That's so critical.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times we're raised in homes or in certain communities or subcultures where it's not okay to talk about sex.
Right.
Or if it comes up, it's always in a joking way or maybe in a derogatory way. A lot of us aren't prepared to have really grown-up, helpful conversations.
Well, it's just a tricky thing to look your spouse in the eye and say, hey, honey, we need to talk about our sex life. It's like, you know, deer in the headlights. So.
And do you think the church is doing maybe better at this, being more honest about this kind of conversation in marriage than maybe perhaps in past
Oh, I think it's better.
Okay.
I don't think we're there yet, though.
Yeah.
I still think there's plenty of moments and plenty of environments where it's really still not talked about very openly and honestly.
Yeah.
But it's better than like when I grew up.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot better.
For sure. And younger generations are pushing that. You know,
That's right.
our millennials are making us
Yeah.
be more honest.
Sure.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
And you guys talk, I mean, you do marriage getaways, which I'm
do.
coming. My husband and I are coming.
excited about
Way to
that.
go.
We'll be there in a few weeks. I'm excited about that. But you talk about really everything. You cover the gamut,
Sure.
and you link what is the importance between emotional intimacy
Okay.
and physical intimacy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Neil or Cheryl?
No, you go ahead. But I was just going to link that with what we said earlier, that some of the reason for conflict, I think, is we forget that we're not just physical beings. We are
Yes.
emotional beings.
right.
We are spiritual beings,
right.
and we are physical beings.
Right.
And so sometimes our issues aren't in our sex life. We have issues in the rest of our life, but they show up in the bedroom.
Yes.
Which is why I think there's a lot of conflict in and around our sexual relationship. Sometimes it's not about the sex, it's about other things. But because that's such an intimate place, it shows up. And I think emotional intimacy, which is what you were
Yep.
asking about, hugely connected to sexual satisfaction.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, because the security that comes when we feel emotionally bonded or emotionally honest, like my spouse is trying to be honest with me, he or she's trying to get me, I'm trying to get them, that builds security and trust. And I'm just telling you, security and trust is a cornerstone of a great marriage. It's a cornerstone of a great sex life. Because why would we open ourselves up to somebody who's not safe? And I mean sexually, but I also mean in terms of the secrets you share, the fears you divulge. Like security is so important. And that's why we believe marriage is really important, to actually say, no, I intend to be here forever, in good days and bad days, no matter what. I think that is the right context to build security that then allows us to grow.
But that emotional connectedness is so important too. And but it's hard to describe what it feels like, but you know what it feels like when you feel emotionally safe.
Try to unpack that more. What does it feel like to be emotionally secure?
Yeah. We call this session in our weekend getaway Safe Harbor. And I love that phrase because it just feels like it's a safe place where you're protected, where you can be, when you're deeply known and deeply loved. Like Neil knows all the dark corners of my heart and still
And I still love
loves me anyway.
And vice versa, yeah.
And I think somebody described it to me this way: when you're not emotionally safe, it feels like you're holding your breath. And the sad thing is, some people hold their breath their entire married lives. But when you can breathe freely, like I'm free to be myself, I'm free to be known, free to be loved. Then everything flows out of that emotional connection.
I love that. We're going to talk more with Neil and Cheryl when we get back, and hold on to your seatbelts because we're going even deeper.
Is your marriage thriving? We're here to help you make your relationship stronger. Call our prayer lines today at 1-855-759-0700 or visit 700club.ca and request Love and Marriage, a powerful resource and tool to use on your journey from striving to thriving to make your marriage stronger. It's yours free when you call today.
Well, welcome back. We're certainly diving right into the heart of the matter. It's Valentine's Day. We might as well go there, right? Talking about physical and emotional intimacy. I love how you said they're connected. So what practical help do you provide for couples in this area of their life?
You know, as we grow to understand each other, here's a dynamic that Cheryl and I really had to sort out, and it was messy for us for a long time. But we've talked to thousands of couples, really. Right. This is so common. One of you is particularly drawn to be sexually intimate so that you can feel emotionally close. Okay. And quite often your partner needs to feel emotionally close before they want to be sexually intimate. And this is a huge source of misunderstanding. So if we could sort of come to it going, we both want the same thing. We want to feel close. Right. But we need that emotional connection to really set the right tone and the right environment. Hey, it's Valentine's Day. Work first to be emotionally close today, right? But I know we really struggled with that. I used to travel a lot. I'd come home and I want to connect with Cheryl. Yep. So to me, that meant let's have sex. And she's like, I don't even know who you are.
You've been away too long.
Yes. So there's no emotional connection. And so I thought she's rejecting me. She thinks I'm using her. And until we had the honest conversation, we were stuck there.
Yeah, we were.
So good.
That's a big big deal. Another big deal is we talked about libido differences. Navigating those differences can be a real challenge. I mean, here's the difference. Physiologically, this is a different gender difference. Physiologically, it takes women about, on average, 17 minutes from warm up to completion. From starting the motor running to orgasm. Guess how long for men? I won't even make you guess. 2
I'm going to
minutes.
say 2 minutes. I was going to say 2 minutes. Yeah.
Bing, 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 bing. And that's the average.
Average.
And
Like,
some
that's
guys go, I can beat that. You know?
Right. Like it's a
not
competition.
race. It's not a race.
But so just physiologically navigating those differences.
That's
and then
important.
you throw in all your life experiences, you come at it with different perspectives, your personality differences show up in your sex life. You've got to find ways, and honestly, the only way to navigate those things is to have honest conversations.
Right.
But those are so emotionally laden often that people back away from those conversations. They'll go years. We've met couples who've been married for 30 years and more, and never once have they talked about their sex life. It's just too awkward. They don't know how to bring it up, and so they don't talk about it.
Well, I think it's great what you're doing as you're doing these marriage getaways and the various ways you help people. In some ways, you're helping them unlock the conversation.
And it's just got to start.
Right. And if you can start talking about any area of your relationship, it's a help, right?
Yeah.
So here's another big topic. Porn.
Yeah.
What do you see when you're working with couples, the impact of porn or the prevalence of porn?
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. As awkward and painful sometimes it can be to talk about. About 70% of porn users in Canada right now are male, about 30% are female. So, we need to understand that both men and women are affected by porn. And then, of course, if your partner's using porn, whatever the gender. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal for all of us. And I want to explain how important it is this way. God designed sex to be this incredible, not just a pleasurable thing, but a bonding thing. So when we have sex and you have an orgasm, you're hit with dopamine, which is this chemical. It's the addictive chemical. I want more of this kind of chemical. And then it's followed up by oxytocin, which is this bonding chemical. Moms nursing babies are flooded with oxytocin. And there's only one time that men come close to a female oxytocin level, and that's after they make love.
They turn into girls.
We turn into girls.
Interesting.
We want to watch The Notebook together and stuff. So we're so isn't this a brilliant design? So the more Sharol and I enjoy sex, the more bonded we are. Our bodies are just wired to addict me to her, the dopamine, to bond me to her with oxytocin. But here's the problem. Your body as a physiological machine will have the same reaction if you're unfaithful with different partners. So now you're bonded to them a little bit. And porn, you'll become bonded to that. And of course, many, many, many people get so bonded to porn, they almost prefer it. And they're addicted to it. So it just blows up the relationship. Okay, I think porn's sin. I think porn is a blight on society with that sex trafficking. But we're talking about relationship.
Yeah.
It destroys the intimacy or undercuts the intimacy that's there for you. The best sex is the same partner for your whole life.
Yes, and that's because God made it that way.
And I will tell you, the sad thing about this is a lot of people bring their pornography addiction or their pornography habit into marriage. Some couples we meet have never experienced what their sex life could be because they've had porn in their relationship the entire time. And I just think that's so sad to not know what that really feels like to be the one and only in your partner's eyes, in your partner's mind. And so I just need to make sure we say there is wholeness and healing on the other side of pornography.
See it all the
We've
time.
seen it all the time. We've seen couples come through it. It's hard work, depending on how deeply entrenched in the behavior. It's hard work, but so worth it. I mean, it's part of our story and our past, and we can attest there's so much life, there's so much freedom on the other side.
We can attest to both the hurt and the healing and the hope.
That's
right?
beautiful.
So,
But we've walked with, I don't know, probably thousands of couples through this particular issue. It's unbelievably prevalent, and it's so sad.
Yeah, and thank you for putting that in. And our show, I mean, we have stories that share the power of healing through anything. Like God is
But God's
able,
help,
and with God's help, He's able. I want to just take us back at the top. You said emotional intimacy, which is so deeply connected to physical intimacy, is about safety and security.
yeah.
And I think that is so important for people to hear, because some people are watching and they don't have safety and security.
Right, they don't.
There's been a breach. There's been an unfaithfulness. What can you share with someone they're listening to this conversation, but they're hurting because they don't feel safe and secure? What would you say to them?
Do you mean there's been some infidelity
Yeah.
or pornography too, which feels like an
Feels like
infidelity,
infidelity.
to be honest.
I would be pretty quick to involve a third party. It's very tempting to go, oh, you know, I've hurt you, or I was an indiscretion, I was unfaithful. I'm sorry, and move on. But that would be really tragic because there's some really deep wounds and they need to be attended to. And I'd invite a third party in.
That's
Yeah,
good advice.
I would also say that it's going to, if both of you are willing to work on it, you can get through anything.
That's right.
Any marriage with God's help can be restored. We've seen it, it's a beautiful thing what God can do when two people humble themselves and ask for God's help. But I would also warn them, it's going to take a long time. It's going to take a while. And while you can forgive in a moment with God's help, rebuilding that trust in a relationship, that can take a long time. And couples often aren't patient enough to live through the process of healing and being reconciled. Because the person who confesses, all of a sudden, it's off their plate.
Right.
They're free. They feel euphoric.
Yeah.
And they're like, let's get on with this relationship. But the person who's been wounded, it takes a long time for the emotions to catch up with the forgiveness.
That's so good.